Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We are back with another Neurodiversity Stories. And guys, this is our episode 30, and it is going to be our final show. But guys, as like with everything, everything evolves and moves on to different things. So please do stay in touch for all latest developments and everything else that we're going to be doing. But I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has supported this channel and our incredible 29 previous guests. And today we have another absolutely incredible guest. I can't even get my words out. I'm so excited. Good friend of mine, Daniel Brooke. I've been following his content for feels like ages on LinkedIn. He is absolutely incredible in the work that he's doing in the neurodiversity sector, in the workplace sector. And do you know what? It's fantastic to be able to pin him down fresh from holiday to come on to Neurodiversity Stories to share his wisdom and his take on neurodiversity stories. But guys, also as well, we couldn't do this without you. So I do want to really appreciate and thank you for everyone that's tuned in and either watched the shows live or watched them on YouTube or caught up on the podcast. We've had people from, I think it's just over 15 countries all getting involved in this. So it's been, like I said, an incredible movement and speaking to lots of different people around their stories around neurodiversity. I also, guys, want to say a massive thank you to all of our sponsors as well, which has really helped us, support the channel, and also, the fact of being able to share the amazing products or services that they do. And I wanted to share with you guys this. Thank you, a massive thank you to Clara Writer Helper, who have supported our channel and been our latest sponsors. And I want you guys to check this out.
If the thought of writing essays fills you with dread, then you need Claro Writing Helper from Claro Software. Our intuitive, easy-to-use software takes the stress out of essay writing by giving you 7 clear, easy-to-follow steps to help you organise your thinking, develop the flow, capture snippets from documents and websites, and produce great essay content. Contact us today to start your free 15-day trial and say goodbye to essay writing anxiety.
So guys, that's Clara Writer Helper, an incredible organization. All their details will be in the blurb attached to this. If you're watching it on YouTube or catching it on the podcast or even watching it live, then please do check them out. Guys, we also would love to know if you are tuning in live with us, or even if you're watching this on the replay, please do let us know where you're tuning in from. Maybe, what country you're tuning in from, and feel free to get involved and ask any questions throughout this talk. It's always great to hear from you. But guys, you're not just here to hear me talk and thank everyone. You're here to welcome our incredible guest, Daniel. Now, Daniel is a neurodiversity specialist, and he's supporting neurodiversity people in the workplace. Like I said, he's doing an absolute phenomenal job, and we're going to be discussing how to create that neurodiverse workforce, but ultimately how we can all work in unison together. And I really do want you to sit back and enjoy this incredible talk. Please, like I said, feel free to drop in the comments if you do have any questions along the way, or let us know where you're tuning in from. But guys, without further ado, I want to introduce you to Daniel. Good morning, Daniel. How are you, my friend?
Morning, Darren. I'm really well, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm doing incredibly well. Daniel, I've just got to say, I've got a massive bio which I've I've written out, which I was going to read out, but it would be fantastic for you to just introduce yourself. Just tell the people a little bit about yourself. I know we connected quite some time ago on LinkedIn, and like I said, I've been a massive advocate of your content and the stuff you're putting out. When you gravitate, as soon as someone puts a certain post out, you always gravitate, you think, oh, what's it going to be? That's your content and your post. So I'm always really intrigued in what you're putting. But Daniel, it'd be amazing if you could just introduce yourself and tell the viewers a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, firstly, Darren, I just want to say a massive thank you for inviting me on to this series. I think this series is fantastic, and the content you've put out is brilliant. And hearing other people's stories has been absolutely amazing. So thank you for inviting me.
Yes.
And so my name's Daniel, and I am the director of a company called Neurodiversity Specialists. I'm dyslexic. I set up the company really because of that, because I experienced challenges in the workplace myself before, got some great support myself, and actually through that journey learnt how to gain more control over my challenges and how to tap into my strengths. And I think because of that journey that I really wanted to give that support to others, really make that difference to other people's lives. And I set up the company really to do that, to support individuals, but also educate organizations and employers of how amazing neurodivergent people are and how brilliant having neurodiverse teams can actually be for them.
That's absolutely wonderful, Daniel, and it's so important. I've worked in the kind of the workplace, obviously prior to my dyslexia and ADHD diagnosis at the age of 36. So I kind of understand what it was kind of like prior to working in the workplace, undiagnosed, and then kind of setting up my own businesses and working in that kind of working with organizations to understand it. And it is. I mean, you must see that. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done, but also I guess there's some incredible work that's been done already.
Yeah, absolutely. Some organizations are really like leading the way, really thinking about, how do we recruit neurodiverse individuals? How can we make that process neuro-inclusive? Really thinking about the way that they train individuals, induct them into the organization. So some organizations are doing some really, really great stuff. But yes, of course, there are organizations out there that maybe aren't aware of the benefits of neurodiversity and aren't aware of how they need to be and should be supporting neurodivergent people within their organization. So that's why it's great, people like you and I out there educating these organizations, really helping them to understand what they should be doing.
And you're absolutely right, Daniel. Thank you so much for sharing that. With regards to, because I see it kind of as a journey. And I know when we started working with organizations, I think it was about 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. And it was obviously a lot of unknown questions. It was almost, okay, so can you come and do a talk, or can you come and do this? And I always kind of see it as a journey. And it's not, we don't just have an organization that's going to be, dyslexia awareness in October because it's Dyslexia Awareness Month. It needs to be November, December, January, and so on and so on. And I don't know if you've had that in the sense of, look, when they contacted you, it's almost, okay, so I always say we start with a conversation. It's almost just, that communication and how we kind of work with that. And then it's the case, it is a relationship building, isn't it? It's a journey, because it's not just almost like you're opening Pandora's box, so to speak, and then you're kind of trying to manage through it. That's just kind of my take. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree. It is a journey. And I actually think that sometimes organizations maybe don't come forward or maybe don't get some expertise into the organization because they don't know where to start. Yeah. And actually they don't maybe fully know, what's the process that we need to put in place. So I absolutely agree with you. I think it's about having the conversation, helping organizations understand how they can take a step-by-step approach to this and the kind of order that they need to do things in. So I don't know if you found this, Darren, but
no, honestly, you're absolutely spot on. And I guess, we in some aspects, I guess we live and breathe this kind of, the neurodiversity sector. But you're absolutely right. Is how does an organization say, okay, so how do we work with this? What do we do? What are the steps? And what do we do going moving forward? And I guess, coming to yourself as an expert in that field and then saying, okay, so how do we do it? That relaying that thing, what you just said, the journey, the process, and this is what we do in these steps is absolutely vital to the organization to know how long it's going to be taking, what steps they're going to be taking, because that's ultimately what they kind of want to know, really, isn't it? And how to support their staff.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think a lot of organizations are thinking about where do we start with this. So my view is that the place where you actually need to start in terms of support is actually getting a very clear and appropriate process of support for neurodivergent staff in place. So you want to make sure that you've got that process in place so that anyone within your organization or anyone joining your organization knows what support they will be given for their challenges. So we're talking things like workplace needs assessments, workplace coaching, assistive technology, having a really clear process of how people will access that support. And then from that, you can build kind of outwards really and think about, okay, well, how do we recruit neurodiverse individuals? How do we make that recruitment and selection process neuro-inclusive? So yeah, absolutely, talking to organizations, helping them to understand where the priorities should be and the kind of appropriate order to things. So I have a kind of a value where I won't help organizations improve their recruitment and selection practice until they've got that good and clear process of support in place. Because
no, that's absolutely really interesting that you said that, and that's almost like that commitment to you, isn't it, in the sense of not just you but to the staff, to your organization excuse me, to have that, this isn't a tick box exercise. This isn't the process. You don't just bring me in to be able to do this. You genuinely care about the well-being of people and how to help them. So yeah, absolutely. You don't want to put your name to something that's just going to be, a process which isn't going to be, fully taken through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just about, understanding that if you're going to recruit this amazing talent that's out there, you need to support them when they're in the organization. And actually, when you've got that support process in place, they're going to be able to be more in control of their challenges, work at their best, and then the organization are going to benefit from all those amazing strengths that they have. So
absolutely, Daniel. I don't normally go to questions so early, but I just know that you're a proper chap, so I just knew that we would have people in. So I just want to kind of go to some of these kind of the comments that we made. Again, a massive thank you to everyone that's tuning in. Please feel free to let us know whereabouts in the world you're tuned in from. Adrian Chase says, "Hi, I have a brother with dyslexia, and he has learned to only read something once and totally take it in the detail, and he has such a brilliant imagination." Adrian's a great friend of mine. Thank you so much for sharing that, Adrian. And I know your brother very well and the story behind him. I just want to bring up Millie. So Millie Moss has said, "Be interesting to know how can organizations avoid box ticking and how individuals can spot organizations that are simply box ticking. It can be hard when you're applying for roles to know which organizations is going to be genuinely supportive and which just to say, will be." Do you have any thoughts on that? I'm sorry if I'm throwing a question at you, Daniel.
Oh no, go for it. Yeah, I do have some thoughts on that, and I think that's a really interesting topic and point. And I think that so when I'm working with people who are looking for a new role and looking to work in an organization, and they are maybe a bit fearful of this, that they're going to go into an organization where they're not really going to be supported. They say they're going to do it, but are they really going to do it, and are they going to do it well? So I always say to candidates, look at what that organization is communicating to you about things like reasonable adjustments. When they are inviting you to interview, are they talking about reasonable adjustments at the interview stage? Are they putting out communication and blogs about neurodiversity and how as an organization they value it? So yeah, what are they really communicating? What's on their website? What during the recruitment process are they telling you about neurodiversity and the support they give to individuals? Because if they're doing it at that stage right at the beginning, and they're also sort of blogging or communicating things about neurodiversity, that would give me personally confidence that yes, this organization is taking it seriously and really understands the value of it.
Spot on. Absolutely. Couldn't put it better myself. Thank you so much for sharing that, Daniel. I guess when we, because we look at the recruitment process, it's kind of the start of the journey for the individual. Because like I said, it is, when we're even advertising the job in a certain way, it's, how do we take that process? And if we think about some of the kind of the online applications that we have to do, and maybe some kind of the theory, I don't know if there's huge theory tests, but some of the tests that we have to go through. And I remember speaking to an incredible chap, Elliot, who's doing phenomenal things in HSBC, and he said, sometimes the process for, say, the banking industry or something within the financial industry can be quite difficult because there are so many different tests that you have to do prior to this. And if you think about it, we can lose some real talent through that one process of where we're having, they may fail some of that test. Not saying that Elliot did, he did incredible. But in general, if we take the banking industry as one, that process can be, quite difficult. You could probably not even get to the interview to be able to show your talent and who you are and what you can do. And it could just be some of those psychometric tests, or that's the terminology.
Yeah, and unfortunately, some of those processes and that recruitment process can be really rigid. And one of the things that I really try to communicate to organizations is you can't be so rigid, because you're going to be having people applying. And actually, you want people who are applying who think and process differently. So that kind of one size fits all approach is not going to work. So if you are doing interviews, assessments, things like that, you have to think about how you could diversify those so that people who think and process differently get an equal opportunity. So, a really simple example, Darren, would be you're asking somebody to complete a long application form, writing lots of information into it. Actually, does that role require a lot of written communication? And if it doesn't, why aren't you letting people upload video CVs? It's thinking about things differently.
Absolutely love that element, like you said, with the video upload. A lot of my content that I've done throughout the years, my own businesses and everything else, is being. If someone said, why do you do so much video? And it's purely because sometimes the video, it just allows me to get the message out a lot quicker. And I always find when I go to kind of the real world, so to speak, and I'm having to fill in lots of forms and the formality of it, it does still feel like it's stuck in some sort of dated ages where that would be. I mean, there probably are some organizations that allow you to upload a video within that side of it. I've not seen them, but that you're absolutely right. That would be so much easier, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, it's taking this approach with so many other things as well. So just thinking about, okay, different people are going to be applying, interacting with you. So we need to have different ways of doing things. So if you're asking someone to produce or give you something in a very theoretical way, how is that going to be inclusive for those who are more visual or practical learners and process in that way? So it's just really thinking about diversifying the way that you do things. It's so important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a couple more on there, Daniel, if it's okay. Michelle Catterson said, hi, Darren. Had a spare moment of work. I know, incredible. If you've not followed Michelle Catterson, she is the head at Moonhill School, a dyslexic school, who are doing incredible things. Thank you so much for joining us, Michelle. I just want to bring up Ruth Fenton. She said, love you get support into the organization first. I've just been through a long recruitment process, which was no way neurodiverse friendly. Fully of psychometric tests, a test to me now, assessment centers, etc. It does make me wonder what support would be in place for neurodiversity staff. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ruth. And obviously, I'm sorry to hear that you've obviously gone through that process. But like I said, Daniel, I mean, I think we just need to clone you a few things. So when we talk about the recruitment process, it's absolutely right, isn't it? That is the first, when you're looking at an organization to work with, are you kind of looking, do you go in and if you don't mind sharing, you don't have to,
Yeah,
but you kind of look at those things, like you said, are they doing the blogs, are they doing the awareness? What would it be like if I recruited for, was applying for a position within that? Is that the kind of the way that you would look at an organization that contacts you?
Yeah, so I guess maybe I'd be looking at the organization from a slightly different perspective. So if an organization gets in touch with me about, okay, we'd like to work with you to raise awareness, or we'd like you to normally organizations will come to me and say, oh, we want you to do something very specific. And then actually when you have the conversation, you're like, are you quite ready for that yet? Because there might be a few steps before. And normally, I have to say, with a lot of organizations that I speak to, what they originally come to me for, we're not quite delivering that straight away. So you don't want to jump in with recruitment if you haven't got the process in place, or there's been no education piece at all around kind of like awareness training. So I think when organizations contact me, and answer to your question, yes, I'm looking at what they've already done and asking lots of questions about that. But I'm also checking, is what you think you need what you actually need, and actually helping them to understand that there could be some steps before that. So yeah.
No, that's absolutely fantastic. I'm sorry for putting you on the spot on that, Daniel.
No.
I really, it's just really interesting to know, and you're absolutely right in the sense that the process, we try and think to ourselves, well, we need to fix everything. So if you went and said, okay, so we're looking at the recruitment process, we're looking at the onboarding, we're looking at assistive technology, how to work, what support they can have in this, from an organization point that maybe is only just researching to see how they can do it. I can imagine they're thinking, well, can you just sort it all out? And you're thinking, well, hang on, and this is what I mean about the process. And it's a long, it becomes a working relationship and a journey, I guess.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, if we're recruiting someone in and we sort out the recruitment, and then they come in and there's certain support that's not in there in place, it can start kind of occurring a few issues, couldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the great things is when you can really work with the organization and people within the organization that are going to be owners of this, so owners of the recruitment process, owners of the internal training and development. And what I love is working with those individuals and helping them to build something that works for their organization, because we need something that is specific and bespoke to that organization. And you're only going to really get that understanding when you work really closely with those people. So that's what I love. I love going along to like meetings and talking to them about, okay, well, what is it that you're already doing? And here's some ideas. And I know this works really well in an organization similar to you. And I love those conversations because it gets everyone really excited.
And ultimately, it's almost, you're kind of, when you walk away from working with that organization for quite some time and you look back and you think, oh my goodness, you were responsible of helping so many people. And then you're laying these foundations down to help people in the future that probably won't, get to meet you in that sense. But that must be incredibly rewarding to know that when someone in 6 months, a year's time, 2 years' time is then applying to work in that organization, the foundations that you've helped build will help that individual within that workplace.
Yeah. I mean, it's a hugely rewarding part of the work that both of us do. I think we want individuals to be really supported. We want individuals to come into organizations and from day one have the support that they need to work at their best, because that will not only make them feel great, the organization is going to massively benefit from that, because they're going to be producing like amazing work and the organization can really tap into their strengths. But, I think it has such I don't know what the right word is, but like, I'm thinking like a global reach when you get these things right. And
Yes.
when you do them well, it really, really spreads throughout the whole of the organization. It improves communication, productivity, creativity, innovation. If you get a good process in place, you look at, you know, your policies and procedures and you make them neuro inclusive, it just has a massive positive impact. And I love that. I love being like a part of that.
It really is, and you are you know, doing incredible work within the workplace. And you're absolutely right. You know, it is. You know, I've always thought of it. You don't want special favors, or, you know, someone to say, well, actually, a kind of a leg up in the organization because of this. It's just being allowed to have the support, which is, you know, and then just be able to have that in place so you can actually, you know, deliver what your job is, because the amount of pressure, I guess, on an individual to deliver, you know, what they need to do, maybe their KPIs or whatever it is they need to do. And the fundamentals of not being able to put that email together or read or something, you know, something else that's stopping that, and not having that support and no one to speak to, it becomes quite a daunting place.
Yeah, you know, absolutely. And I mean, I've worked with a lot of individuals on a one-to-one basis where the kind of the first thing, or one of the first things that I think about is, it would have been so great if you were having this workplace needs assessment with me when you started the job, or, you know, soon after starting. You're now maybe 2 years into the job. You know, you've struggled with certain parts of the role. You've been communicating that you need some support. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, that hasn't happened yet. So yeah, you know, I think the other thing is about the time of when the support is given. And if it's given early on, that's great for everybody. And I think that you know, a lot of organizations really want to do the right thing, but they're just not aware of necessarily how to do it. And of course, they don't have people within the organizations that have that expertise. So it's important that they do reach out and you know, work with people that can help them do this.
Absolutely. And it's normally what I found is there's someone within an organization, maybe, you know, some of the larger organizations as well, I've seen, that's kind of championing the you know, the dyslexic movement within the organization, neurodiversity movement, or whatever they're doing. And then that's a case of then looking for outside support to then bring someone in to kind of help and support. It's very difficult I've noticed, you know, especially kind of 2-3 years ago, to kind of approach an organization and create this idea of making a neurodiverse workplace. It's almost, well, the workplace is, you know, is fine. So that's kind of, you know, the kind of experiences that I find sometimes if you've got someone championing it inside an organization, it does help a little bit to start that motion.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think what's interesting is sometimes when you work with an organization where some of the senior leaders in the organization are neurodivergent, they obviously can really see the value of neurodiversity, and then will really champion that. So those organizations are you know, are great to work with, because they've got somebody quite senior who really understands the value. And I think that you know, I think the other thing that is important to mention,
yeah, please feel free,
is how do we make our workforce neurodiverse? Well, your workforce is already neurodiverse, because there's going to be lots of people in your organization that have these neurodivergent conditions. So what we need to do is make your organization neuro-inclusive, so that those people who are working, you know, get the support they need, able to work at their best. I'm repeating myself here, but
no, I totally get. I love that spin, and you're absolutely right. It is, you know, let's create a neurodiverse workforce, and when you say it already is, you know, you don't have to create that part. You know, that's already created. Exactly. is how you turn that around. I just want to bring up a couple more comments, if that's okay. Just in response to, so we had Millie Moss asked, you know, the question, the comment. So Millie Moss has said, good point. Thank you, Daniel. I suspect it's something larger organizations and corporates are taking on board, or hopefully started to. It'd be great for this to filter down to smaller organizations, smaller non-profits, etc., which is where things like neurodiverse support can be seen as a nice to have, but not essential due to less staff. I definitely, I mean, when I talk about large organizations, I guess, you know, really, we're talking, like I said, all organizations within this, and then obviously supporting, entrepreneurs, startups. It's very vast, isn't it? That the support that we need to kind of get out there and help.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're an organization that employs more than 8 people, you're likely to have 1 or 2 people within that organization already that are neurodivergent. And I think that going back to sort of Molly's point there, something really important to explain. Larger organizations, some are doing great stuff, but there are still some really large organizations that aren't and are not valuing neurodiversity, and people are struggling within those organizations. And there are some startups and some really small organizations that are leading the way in terms of what they're doing in terms of support and how they're recruiting. So I think naturally sometimes we can assume, oh, well, the large organizations that have got the money, they're going to, change their processes, make them really neuro-inclusive, have great support in place. That's not always the case.
Yeah.
And I think I think that neurodiversity hasn't been a priority in a lot of organizations because it's that one strand of equality and diversity that unfortunately hasn't been given much of the spotlight for a long time. But what I really try to communicate is that neurodivergent conditions affect a lot more people than we think. So we can say 1 in 7, but actually I think it's much higher than that because we have so many people who are undiagnosed and don't realize they're neurodivergent.
Could not, Daniel, absolutely valid, very valid points in that. And we're absolutely right. I knew I was dyslexic and ADHD at 36. I was speaking, I tell this story quite a lot. And I spoke to a gentleman at the start of lockdown, and he was 76, but he's probably 78 now, 76 years of age, and just been diagnosed with dyslexia. And he was a bit cross that he almost didn't, relieved in one aspect, but a little bit cross that he didn't know about it, kind of prior to that. But and this is the problem with statistics, I guess. And don't worry, we're not going to go into statistics, but genuinely, we say 1 in 5, 1 in 10, and all these things. But that's on the basis of people that have come forward and either been assessed or know, around neurodiversity that it affects them. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and I think it's a bit of a challenge actually because so many people aren't diagnosed and don't realize that they're neurodivergent or haven't had that formally recognized. That can be quite difficult to get accurate stats, and I think maybe some organizations may have maybe not come forward and looked at this area as closely as they need to because they maybe think that they don't have that many people in the organization that have these conditions. But as you've rightly said, it affects a lot more people than we think. And also when you take into consideration that neurodivergent conditions co-occur with each other, so that expands it even more. So
and if you're looking at, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you then.
No.
If you're looking at organization, one of these huge conglomerates kind of organization, and even if we went with the statistic of 1 in 10, you think how many thousands of people work in that organization, and it's almost if they turn around and say, well, actually, it's a small percentage. It doesn't matter if it's one person, and that percentage over the longevity of that workplace and helping the individual is something that needs to be brought, like you said, surely to the forefront.
Yeah, definitely, and there's been so many examples of where one neurodivergent person has got some support and they've developed really good coping strategies, and they're using technology to help them gain more control over their challenges. And the impact that that's had on their team and other people around them has been huge because they've maybe shared some of the advice that they've been given. The coping strategies that work for them also can very often work for people who we say are like neurotypical. don't really like that word that much, but, you know, people who don't have neurodivergent conditions.
Yeah.
So a lot of the, you know, the support that can be given to that one individual, the impact of that being given that support can actually be huge, and the reach of it can be huge.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm just going to bring up a couple of more people who's written. Cassandra, incredible person, been on the show. Daniel, amazing point. As someone with dyslexia and as a teacher supporting students who find learning more challenging, I would like to see what they're saying within our education system. I completely agree. You know, the educational system, we have had, you know, some incredible guests talking about the educational system on our stories. So please do check out some of those as well. But you're absolutely right. And I'm sure Daniel will concur in that. You know, I see the education system as kind of, the way I'd love to see the journey in the process is that we're supporting individuals within the educational system so that they have that kind of support. Then they go into you know, sixth form or college or university, and then the workplace. Wouldn't it be amazing if that support was enabled to just have that, you know, that continuous journey, rather than these gaps of, you know, not being able to be supported in school, and maybe supported in university, and then not in the workplace. You see what I mean? It would be amazing if we had that kind of journey.
Oh, I think that would be just so amazing, because, you know, I've worked with people that have had really great support during school and education, and then they come into the workplace and they're not aware of what support they can access, or maybe their organization isn't offering or communicating about that. And then they've kind of gone from somebody who's had some great support, achieved amazing things during education, and then they're in the workplace and they're struggling and they don't know how to support themselves. So to have, you know, to have all of that lined up, and all of those different parts of life, really, to have the right support, it would be amazing. And, you know, there are some schools that are doing some incredible things, but then there are some schools that are maybe a bit behind the curve as well.
No, I totally agree. I speak to a lot of kind of people on kind of LinkedIn and students that kind of message on the sense that when they've got to university, a lot of the people that I've spoken to have been diagnosed when they got to university, in the sense, and I think, you know, that going to university, I can imagine, I've not been to university, but I can imagine it's an incredibly daunting place anyway. Exciting but daunting in the responsibility and what you need to do, but also if you then are told, you know, yes, it's dyslexia or ADHD or at university, I can imagine that could be, again, something that could be another challenge, you know, mentally to kind of deal with.
Absolutely. And I think that when people do get diagnosed, if they're kind of, you know, an adult, whether that's a young adult or later on, I think you always have that part of you where you look back and you wish that things were different. So I know that when I found out I was dyslexic, you know, I looked back at my school and I thought, oh God, if only things were like a little bit different, I know I would have done differently. But then, you know, in other ways.
Daniel, which brings me lovely onto, and thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom on this. And normally I start off by saying, you know, tell me a little bit about, you know, diagnosis and things, but like I said, we've got questions coming in thick and fast on there. So guys, please do keep your questions coming in. If we can't answer them live while we're talking, then hopefully, you know, Daniel, if you can, myself and Daniel will answer any questions on LinkedIn, if that's okay, you know, over the period of time, if that's okay. But Daniel, tell me about your kind of diagnosis. What age did you find out around your dyslexia, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I was 30. I was in my second role within a big, I used to work for a university, a big university, quite famous one. I was in my second role there. I'd really struggled in my first role. The second role was a lot more suited to my strengths, but I was still struggling with certain parts of it. And I think when I found out at that age, at 30, there were so many emotions attached to that. There was relief. I finally got an answer. Okay, I'm not just stupid, because I thought that I was stupid and not intelligent. And that's why I found certain things difficult or challenging that others didn't. But there was also like anger towards like the past and things that have been said to me in the past and things that happened at school. But I have to say it was such a turning point for me, finding out that I was dyslexic and understanding more about how I process, what works for me in terms of processing information, what strategies I can put in place, really helped me to get a better understanding of, who I was, what I was good at. And, from that point onwards, really good things started happening because I just had increased self-awareness, I think.
That's incredible. I didn't realize it was, the age of 30. So, very similar. I was 36, you're 30. So it is a kind of a bit of a life-changing moment, isn't it? And I found once I had the diagnosis, it was almost, for me, I would look back, and you're absolutely right. Because I always remember there were certain situations where I didn't get the promotion, or I did get the promotion, or there were certain tests I had to do, and all these different things are going on. And how beautiful the mind is, and sometimes the mind doesn't realize whether it's actually happening or it's a memory, and without going into neuroscience of minds and stuff. But genuinely, though, I used to almost cringe with some of the things that I felt embarrassed at the time. All those moments like, why do I not understand these kind of elements of it? So understanding that I learn differently and understanding it's dyslexia or ADHD, it did give me that kind of almost sort of forgiveness, I guess, for I always forgave myself for feeling like that. I know it sounds a bit strange, but and moments of looking back now, I can kind of think, well, that was part of my journey. That's why I did it. But it did make me very reflective.
Yeah. Yes. I can totally what's the word, relate to that, because I think that understanding why you find something challenging and that there's a reason because of that, I think that similar to yourself, I started to be less hard on myself, and that actually had a real positive impact on my self-esteem and my confidence. So I can totally relate to what you said. And look at what you've done now, Darren. You've like achieved so much, haven't you? So it just goes to show that when you've got a good understanding of yourself and you've got the right coping strategies in place, it can make an amazing difference.
And go straight back to you, Daniel. You're being far too kind on what you've achieved and what you're achieving. But I think for me, it's how important is the support network around there for you? Because for me, they've always said, like, how do you do, certain things and achieve these things and stuff. And for me, I know what I'm good at. I know what I enjoy to do, and other stuff, I'm not like a child. I won't say, well, I won't do that because I don't enjoy it. There's certain things you have to do, but I know where I kind of excel and where they get the kind of the best out of me. But the amazing thing I've had is I've always kind of seemed to, even prior to diagnosis, I always seemed to surround myself with incredible people who can kind of help and support and inspire. How important has your kind of network, of people been, Daniel? If you don't mind.
Yeah, very important. I think whether that's friends, family, other work colleagues, other professionals in this workspace as well. So yeah, I think it's hugely important because I think if we're being honest, there will have been times where, because of our neurodivergent condition, that there have been certain periods in your life where it's been quite challenging.
Hugely.
Before you've got the support, before you've got the coping strategies in place. So having people around you that can give you that emotional support, having people that around you that can that don't make you feel different and like an outsider, and actually make you feel included and supported is really, really important. And I got some amazing support when I was at the university that I worked at, and that for me made a huge difference to my life. So yeah, very, very important.
That wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I feel it's almost sometimes the support's there when you don't really know it's there, and it can just be something really small, but and then you kind of reflect on that and you think, oh my goodness, that I look back on some of the things that were a real kind of struggle for me, and that, like I said, having those conversations and being a little bit open about some of the struggles that you have, I found it has really kind of helped and support. And I put a post up on LinkedIn the other day, and it was just around our kind of mind talk of how we see, how I hear people talk about dyslexia, and I've done exactly the same. And generally, whenever I kind of mention my dyslexia, it's normally on the basis of it's then led with something I can't do. So I struggle with that because I'm dyslexic, or I struggle with this because of this, or I'm not, with that kind of, it's always seems to be a negative connotations, even though it's not meant to be. And it was just interesting to think about flipping it on its head, really, and that positive connotations around, what is it from your dyslexia or ADHD or, neurodiverse mind that then does bring more of a kind of a positivity element. Because I think we do tend to, I don't know if it's human behavior, we do sort of prior to not dwell on the negatives, but we do see it as a problem sometimes. Would you does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it absolutely does, Darren. And I think that also because of the way sometimes, things are set up, we're always kind of set up, aren't we, to look at what our weaknesses, challenges, difficulties are and improve on those. And I think that so that can naturally make you feel like, oh, I didn't get the grade that I needed, or oh, someone else in the team that I worked with did a better job on that. So you're always comparing yourself to others. Yeah. And I think that's why you can naturally kind of go towards like that way of thinking. But I have to say, and I don't mean this in an arrogant way. And what I do appreciate before I say this is that everyone will be at a different place in their journey of accepting their dyslexia or neurodivergent condition. But I now, and I'm very grateful for this, have got to a place where I would not change it for anything. I love what my dyslexia gives to me. I love what it's given me in terms of my strengths, and I accept what it's given me in terms of my challenges. And thankfully, I've now got some good coping strategies in place. But that's what I love to do, Darren. When I work with people, I love to get them to look at their dyslexia and think this is a strength. It's given me all these amazing sets of skills. I wouldn't be able to do some of the things that I love and enjoy without these. So, really trying to get people to look at their neurodivergent condition and think, I'm glad I got it because it gives me these amazing
honestly, so beautifully put, honestly, and you're absolutely right. It is about that journey of where someone is, whether it's undiagnosed, whether it's diagnosed, whether they don't necessarily have to be diagnosed in that, but it is, I guess, for me personally, I can think about all the kind of the knocks that I've had, and the strength and the resilience that you've kind of built up, and through those, and you're absolutely right. There are, even to this day, there's frustrations when you're trying to write an email, you're trying to do something, and the screen's moving, or all these different kind of things that are kind of happening. But I'm always quite a positive person. I do try, to kind of move on that positive side and take something from it. So I'm, I completely understand and with you on that one.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. It's definitely, focusing on the positives and the strengths that these conditions give to you is great. And, and actually, I think then you become more confident. Definitely.
You too. I'm going to just nip onto the comments. We've got LinkedIn user. Sometimes it pops up. Well, I think we're connected on LinkedIn, so feel free to put your name in the comments after to say who it was. So it's a great episode. Great episode. What I learned from having an invisible disability. Disability is not an inability to do something. I see it as an opportunity to go an alternative path to arrive at a solution, and it's on this path where novel and innovative ideas exist. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really do appreciate this. Ben Halfpenny said, so true. Apologies, Ben. We've probably moved on to lots of different conversations from that, but most reasonable adjustments actually will benefit everyone, whether they are neurodiverse or not. Also, most reasonable adjustments cost nothing to make. You're
Right.
absolutely right, Ben, in that sense. And there's something you mentioned, Daniel, you beautifully put in the sense that this is about building, that workplace environment where we can all kind of work together and play off of each other's strengths.
Definitely. Yeah. I think that's a great point, especially around the reasonable adjustments not costing much. In a lot of cases, very, very simple things have a huge impact and don't cost anything at all. Yeah.
And I just want to say Barry Morgan, he said, what training is there for businesses to do to support the staff? Barry, please do connect with Daniel if you're not connected already. I'm sure he can definitely assist and help you with any questions that you have on this. And as well, Michelle Caston, she says early intervention and support is key. And something that we've touched on this episode, Daniel, and that, I totally agree in that sense. If you can kind of get into a workplace where you can help an individual from early off, and I think you mentioned that around if someone's been in a workplace for 2 years, then maybe that can be not harder to help that individual. But sometimes those early interventions to help that individual can help the person in the workplace and the workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. Designing your support process so that people do get supported early is going to be great for everyone, because, unfortunately, there are some examples of where, because the person hasn't been supported, the situation can become a bit uncomfortable maybe, and there might be a breakdown in relationship there, and actually you want to prevent all of that. You want to give the person what they need in order to work at their best right from the beginning, so that everyone benefits from it.
Absolutely. And if we take an organization, the last thing we want is a continuous labor turnover. And I hate to use the word labor as in people, it's just, again, just terminology, but if we're continuously, it's quite expensive as an organization if we look at recruiting people, bringing people in, training, so that's from the business element. But emotionally, from an individual has to go through those processes of, filling out application forms, doing this, going for the interview, going through the process, not having the support in the organization, then leaving, and then starting the cycle again within another organization. It can be quite soul destroying, can't it?
Absolutely. And also another part of this is that you're not retaining talent. So if you haven't, if people haven't been supported and don't have the right strategies, technology, etc. in place for them, you might not be fully benefiting from all their talents, strengths, skills. So then if that person leaves the organization for whatever reason, you're losing out on that talent. You haven't tapped into it in the first place, potentially, but you're going to lose out on it too. Absolutely.
Daniel, we are coming up to the end of our time, and I did say that it will go quite quick. I could honestly talk to you for the rest of the day. I'm sure you've got much more important things to do. But honestly, my friend, it's been absolutely fantastic having you on to the Neurodiversity Stories as my final guest. But it's just been incredible listening to your wisdom on this. Daniel, if people want to get in contact with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, so they can connect with me on LinkedIn, Daniel Brooke. They can on my website, so it's www.neurodiversity. Oh God, I've forgotten it.
It's okay. I'll put all the links to your social channels and your websites as well. And guys, if you aren't already connected with Daniel, please do reach out and connect with him. And if you are an organization that does want support within those organizations, and please do reach out. Like I said, he's doing phenomenal stuff and can really help workplaces and individuals. So I appreciate it. Daniel, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on this. I'm sure we'll catch up in a couple of weeks' time for a Zoom call, or maybe in the future an actual real face-to-face coffee now that we can do these things.
Oh, wouldn't that be amazing?
Daniel, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the Friday. Have an amazing weekend.
Thanks, Darren.
You're most welcome, and I'll catch you soon. Cheers, my friend.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Darren. Bye.
guys, that was Daniel. I hope you enjoyed that just as much as I did. Like I said, guys, all of his information will be all in the blurb down below, up below, wherever it kind of sits on whatever format. But please do connect with him. Guys, that, I'm afraid, is the end of our neurodiversity stories. We will be back with with something new, maybe in the future. Please do stay connected with me on LinkedIn or anything else that you're connected with. Thank you so much indeed for your time, and I will catch you very, very soon. Take care, guys. Cheers. Bye-bye.